listening to Walking with Him, hosted by Jeff McDermott. Regular guest hosts Travis Phillips, Jeremy Sampson, and Brandon. And now your host, Jeff McDermott.
Good morning. I'm your host, Jeff McDermott with Walking with Him. And this morning we are going to introduce our guest host, Travis Phillips, and kind of talk to him a little bit and let him kind of tell his story of where he's come from. And we'll be getting to spend a lot of time with him this year and getting to know more about him. Good morning, Travis.
Morning, Jeff.
So today I just kind of want to talk to you about where you came from. Tell us a little bit about at what point you found God and where things started to turn around.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm at now and where I came from. How's that sound? Like where I'm at right now is I'm in a really good place because I'm in a really God place. It took me 57 years to get to where I'm at right now. And, and if you read the Bible, that's not that long. And I really feel like it was all on God's time, not my time. And what happened to me is at one point in my life, I was able to reflect back and realize that I haven't always been there for God, but God's always been there for me.
Right.
And so you play that back and all the way to when I'm 2 years old and I'm in a head-on collision, hitting a GTO at 70 miles an hour, unrestrained, and I'm still here. And so the fact that I'm still here and walking on this earth means that God still has purpose in my life. And wouldn't it be a shame if I didn't fulfill that for him? So
I like how you said that 57 years isn't very long in the Bible. I have never really put that much thought into that, but that's like a blink, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is a blink in time. You think about, we're in the year 2025 right now, and the whole world knows it's the year 2025. Well, what's that really mean? It's 2025 years after Jesus was born.
Huh.
I mean, the whole world is based on the birth of Jesus and our timeline, and it plays out. And so we're 2025 years after the birth of Christ. But the thing is the Old Testament, there's thousands of years that led up to that.
Right.
And again, our time on earth is, I'll be lucky to spend 80-ish years here on earth,
Yeah.
And so that means I only got 80 years to make a difference for God.
I sit back and look, I'm 47 and I just figured it out 2 years ago. I still have a long ways to go, but I have a lot of making up to do. It's like you said, you only get 80 years, but I've spent 47 of them not doing the right thing. I'm going to have a lot of extra work to do to make up for those lost years.
So I have a theory on that too, Jeff, so none of those years were lost. The 57 years, like I said, I wasn't there for God. That he was there for me. What he was doing, he was training me. And I really feel that in my heart. From the time I was 2 years old to the time I was 9 years old, when my mom found sobriety, I got to watch my mom take a drink. Then I watched the drink take a drink. And then I watched the drink take my mom.
Right.
And when I was 9 years old, God gave me my mom back. And I didn't realize who was giving my mom back at that time, except for through the 12-step program, who believes in a higher power. And so that's the first introduction to God that I really got in my life, was through the 12-step program. And I found out that if you understand it and if you learn about it, you can defeat it. Well, life was hard my first 9 years, and so what that did was that was preparing me for later on in life, much like a story in the Bible with David and Goliath. David was being prepared to defeat Goliath by becoming a shepherd. And when he's a shepherd of the sheep, he has to protect the sheep. He has to guide the sheep. But what he really does is prepares for the day that the lion shows up, the wolf shows up, the bear shows up. And so David was defeating all those things, being a shepherd, which wasn't a very popular job back then. He wasn't a warrior on the front lines fighting. He was a shepherd protecting the sheep. So when the time came, God called him up to fight Goliath, and he was successful, obviously. So we all have our Goliaths in our life. And so my entire life, as you play it back and see all the places where God was there for you, He was there for me throughout the 9 years of my life, throughout the time that my mom was being succumbed by evil, by the devil, and alcoholism. And just so you know, I've talked to my mom a great deal. She had passed away a few years ago, but I asked for permission to tell her story and our story. She told me that she doesn't mind me talking about our story as long as it helps somebody. But she wanted everybody to know that first you take the drink, then the drink takes the drink, then the drink takes the man.
Right.
And it's just that simple. That's how it works, man. It's that evil just little at a time chips away. Sometimes evil doesn't show up, on the party bus and jump out the door with all the lights and it's like, holy smokes, that's evil. Right? Evil comes into your life a little at a time and chips away and whispers in your ear and takes you down a path that has no light at the end of it. So when my mom sobered up when I was 9 years old and she found sobriety, I had a little sister. She was 3 years younger than me. And I feel like I took on a role there with her. And my dad was working, doing his best. And at some point, enough was enough. And the ultimatum occurred. And my mom went to Valley Hope in Norton, Kansas. And she had tried before to sober up, but with no success. But on this particular occasion, she went to Valley Hope. And what was really neat about it was there was a bunch of older men up there that took her under their wing and a mentor. And so what that taught me is I need a group of people in my life to make it through. We're not going to do this by ourselves.
Right.
And we have a group of men in our lives that meet every Wednesday when it's nice out. We meet at the cross north of town with their lawn chairs. And sometimes we're 20 strong up there. It's getting colder out. We're getting up to church now, Wednesday nights during religion. So that's a group of men and we need each other to make it through. And so these group of men helped my mom through, helped my dad through. And I started learning about alcoholism and what it did. And I discovered that I didn't want to drink. And I didn't want to drink because I knew that if I drank, then that meant that everything my mom went through, right, from the time she took her first drink to the time she found sobriety and the struggles she went through, I felt like I would be slapping her in the face. Right?
Right. It's very true.
So I decided I'm not going to drink. I also didn't drink because I was scared to death to become that. And I knew that it was hereditary. And I knew that based on studies that if there's an alcoholic parent, then the chances of a child becoming alcoholic is a lot higher. And so I did papers as I got older in school and studies on it. And I became the expert on alcoholism. And so I've never drank, I've never used drugs. Now, people who know me know that I don't mind having a good time. And I had a lot of fun. And people think that I drink, but I've never drank. And the interesting thing about that is if the people that don't believe me, man, sorry, I don't care if you don't believe me or not, because that's between me and God, right? So I didn't drink through high school. And of course, there's a lot of peer pressure for that, and got into some arguments about that in high school, but I stood fast to it. And so that was my thing. Well, so fast forward then into high school, during those years where your brain's developing, I got a lot more curious about God. And we weren't real churchgoers. We would go to Christmas every once in a while or Easter once in a while. I would go and stay with my grandma once in a while, and she was Methodist. We'd go to the Methodist church. And so I had a little bit of, I guess, sporadic church in my life, but nothing that would, I guess, set it in stone and give me a path to follow. So when I was in high school, I had a wrestling coach whose name was Stan Faulkner, and probably going out for wrestling in high school was probably one of the life-changing events in my life that I'm glad I did. For one, it served me well where I'm at in my life with law enforcement, and it gave me confidence in my abilities. And as wrestling's about control, it's not about pain. And so I've used wrestling to get myself out of a lot of serious situations along the way. but it also introduced me to a man that's outwardly professes faith. And that was interesting to me because growing up in times, I think people are nervous to profess their faith because they don't want to be labeled. And I'm telling you, when you find that moment in your life where the world's opinion doesn't matter anymore, God's opinion matters, that's a beautiful moment. And I do not hide my faith. And so anyways, as we were going through our wrestling and stuff, and I got to know Stan Faulkner more, one day, there was a basketball match going on in Ellis, and it was on a Tuesday, I believe, because we weren't wrestling. And I looked at the stands, and Stan Faulkner had an empty chair next to him. And I didn't know it at the time, but now I understand that I was supposed to have said that, and I did. And him and I had a conversation at a basketball game about church. And he told me that wherever two or more shall gather in his name, there he is. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is church. And it just really opened my mind up. And he was very knowledgeable of the Bible. And me and my friends went on to go to a sermon that he preached at the Ogalla Church. And so that was a kind of influential turning point in my life, and but I still, I feel like in my life I've been a good person, but I haven't always been a God person. And there is a difference. There's a lot of good people in this world, but man, you got to be a God person too. And when you become a God person, I think he gives you a gift of vision, right? And that vision is being able to see the world like he sees it. And so as I pray now, I pray for God to give me his vision and allow me to see the world the way he wants us to see it. And when you do that, it eliminates the hatred and the politics of the world. And you see every being on this earth has a purpose. Right. So I've been talking a long time, Jeff, and on this particular subject, but if you would like to get me back on track, by all means, grab me.
So you're doing good. The one thing that I liked, and it's funny because we just got done talking to Jeremy a little bit ago, who's also going to be a host with us this season. And one of the things that he just got done talking about, his big push was be bold, being able to talk about it out loud and to be confident. Like you said, let's talk about God. And that's huge because we all need those people. I mean, I'm going to go to the point where I've talked in episode 1 about how important you were in my life, just because you saved Tanner 26 years ago. You and I've been, we've got a lot tied into each other, and then our paths crossed again a couple years ago when you met Tanner at Encounter, and then you took me to Encounter. And if you wouldn't have come up to me and told me that you were going to take Tanner to Encounter, if you wouldn't have been bold, then I wouldn't be here. So I think that it's really impactful to see Jeremy and you and even Brandon and, Pastor Jared and just all these people in town that Devin, for crying out loud. I mean, man, just watching Nathaniel, watching these guys be bold. And that's what you can't beat that. That's what, having that boldness is what creates an impact, right? And if we have an impact, then the rest will grow. So, I don't really want to get you back on track. I just want you to, I guess, to keep talking. You talked a little bit about, your sister and you guys growing up and having some trials and tribulations that you guys had to go through in your early childhood. I talked about you being bold and impactful. I've watched what you've done in her life just in the last year of knowing your sister and watching her go to Women's Encounter. And if anybody doesn't know Travis's sister, they're two peas in a pod. Holy cow. They have the same energy, they're the same excitement, since I just brought up Encounter a little bit, let's talk about how you got there your first time and who took you there and who was bold and who guided you on that journey?
So my journey to Men's Encounter is played out over several years, actually. Well, let me back up all the way to, I've been told that I have a save the world complex, right? And I'm like, whatever, so I don't even know what that means, but what if it means that I get to go out and help people every day, and okay, I want to save the world now, right? So, but when I was doing it in my early years of law enforcement, guess who I was satisfying? I was myself, right? I was doing it and I'm like, yeah, I did good there, right? And I'm helping these people, right? And so as I go through law enforcement and first responders in general, law enforcement in general will see, and first responders will see a crazy amount of trauma in their life, right? And so as I'm growing in my law enforcement and moving through it and feeling like my background that I had coming into this, I've got a lot of empathy coming into it because I've walked through some fire in my youth, and so children really hold a special place in my heart. And I really feel like some of me is like trapped back at age 9, And so, man, kids are right here, right? And so for me, I've seen a lot of stuff in my career, and I'm able to be like, wow, just kind of slough it off, but man, when it comes to kids, man, brother, it's hard, and I still struggle with that. And so we carry that proverbial backpack,
Right.
And so as I'm growing in my law enforcement, I decided that I wanted to be a peacemaker a long time ago, and I didn't even know what that meant. So I got into law enforcement. Hayes Police Department gave me my first chance at that, and I'll always be eternally grateful to them for believing in me and giving me a chance. And I was placed around some men in that department that allowed me to grow. But I will say the very first tragedy that I didn't handle well was the death of a 2-year-old. And I found this 2-year-old frozen to death. And that still gets me. And so it was an event in my life that I was not prepared to deal with.
Right.
And I was first on scene, and I don't want to get into too many details of it, but I will tell you that it involved a 2-year-old that it was just a tragic event where the mother had fallen outside and knocked herself out and came to, but was unable to even get back to the house. And it was just one of them cold Kansas nights, man. And I found the mother first, and she was able to save baby. And there's nobody else there, man. It's early morning hours. It's barely light. And I started looking around for baby, and I got up and I just started running everywhere trying to find, and I found the baby. And so that was really hard. And back then, in law enforcement, we didn't have coping mechanisms like we do now, and now we got peer support groups. But I'm telling you, as hard as that was, again, what did God do with David? He prepared him along the way and put him through these trials and tribulations so that someday he could be his Goliath, right?
Right.
And so that was something I think that, and I know it sounds, I don't think God controls things near as much as what everybody thinks he controls them, right? But I think he helps us help each other.
Right.
And so while that was really hard, what that did is that planted a seed in me that, hey, we need help with this. And so I've been in peer support now for almost 20 years, probably. And now I belong to a group called 1033 Foundation, and they do awesome things, and they help first responders and military with PTS and critical incidents. And so anyway, so I just, way back then that happened. And then the second major event that happened, I was first on scene, was just a crazy incident that happened where a trailer wall went through a windshield on a truck and hit a guy, and it killed him. And I was first there and opened the door, and he fell out. I caught him in my arms. And again, back then there was no way to work through that. There wasn't anything really in place. And if you went to get mental health, then well, you might as well kiss your career goodbye because you can't handle that, right? You can't handle anything else, right? So I threw that in my backpack and I just went back to work. Well, as time went on, I was able to secure a position on Kansas Highway Patrol, and again, I've had a lot of defining moments on the Kansas Highway Patrol. And one of those defining moments is when I met your son. And it's interesting what's on that scroll, man. I was just out minding my own business, and I was 2 or 3 blocks away from your house when that call came in, and I heard the call. I wasn't busy on something else. Everything happened just perfect. And little did we know what that meant at the time when we met, Jeff.
Right.
And I'm telling you, when I heard that call go out of an infant not breathing, I had 2 daughters. I have 2 daughters, and man, what a blessing they are. One of them was 2 at the time, and one was about 6 months old at the time. And Tanner was probably 5 or 6 weeks old.
Right.
So Sunday when I come pulling up, lights and siren, my Crown Vic, I pulled into your yard. I drove over the curb and pulled up into your yard.
Right up the step.
Yeah. And you were standing there holding Tanner in your hands, and his head here and his feet over here. And I remember he's purple. And so I remember you handed him to me, and I started CPR on him. And that's pretty scary. But cool thing is he started breathing again. And I remember the ambulance showed up, and I didn't give him up to that.
No.
I carried him like a football to the ambulance. I ran, I jumped in the back, and away we went, left my car sitting in your front yard running. And we went to the hospital. And it was hard even to hand him over to the staff there because, man, I just couldn't even breathing, but the color came back. Yeah. So I handed him over to the staff, and I have no idea what happened after. I don't remember getting my car back, but I remember I couldn't go home because I didn't want to see my wife and my kids, right? Because I was scared I'd break down in front of them.
Right.
And so I went to the law enforcement center, and I went in the back room. So I'm just telling you, I've been shot at. I've had people try to pull guns on me. I've got bullet holes in my patrol car. People shooting at me. And that stuff didn't scare me, but that scared me.
Me too.
So it shocked me. And then the crazy thing is after that, what transpired after that, that put a lot of stuff in my backpack that day. And I went home and I told my wife and stuff, but then they decided they wanted to give me an award for it. Right. Well, that's really cool to get an award, but guess what that did? Every time they brought it back up again, it brought it back up again.
Right.
And every time I brought it back up again, I relived it again. And, I'm just telling you, to this day, sour milk, it triggers me, man. Because when I was giving Tanner CPR,
So you could taste.
tasted sour milk. Yeah. And so anyway, so every time they wanted to give me an award or something, for just doing my job, is what I saw. That thread in my backpack again. Anyway, so my backpack's getting a little bit heavy at this point.
Right.
And then there was a bad crash, and I talked to Brian about this, but I won't go into a lot of detail, but that was my daughter's best friend that in that crash, and she lost her life. And I know that God helped me through that, because after that, that was the first cross I made. and I made out a broken post from the accident scene, and I went out and fixed all that because I didn't want people to drive by that and see where the crash happened. I didn't want to be a constant reminder to everybody about the tragedy that day. And so I made a cross out of those two posts, the wood posts that broke off there, and gave it to Brian Treva. And since then, let me back up. I really needed God to talk to me, right? Because I was really struggling with that. And I told my family about that. Called my wife on the cell phone, the old flip phone back then, and I told her, I said, make sure that Cheyenne's not around the phone. I'll explain when I get home. And so I called another trooper to work the accident because I couldn't work that one. And in my whole career, that's the only time that I've ever stood down, but I couldn't do it. And I knew I needed to go be with my family. So another trooper came and worked it. And I went home, and we all sat down, and I told her what happened. That was a backpack filler. And now my backpack is plumb full. And so I went and I fixed the fence, and I brought all that home, the wire and the bent T-posts and the broken posts, and had a little talk with God. And I don't know why, but I was looking at those two posts, and I started making a cross out of it. And so again, that was the first one. And since then, I've made a whole bunch of them. I have no idea how many I've made. People have asked me and wanted to buy them. I can't sell a cross, man. You can't do that, man. But so what I do is I use it to reconnect with God. And my mom passed away 7 years ago, and I made her cross for her before she passed away, and she I planted it in front of her house so she get to see it. And now it's up on the Sling River where we scattered her ashes, and so I get to go visit her cross once in a while. And I've made my friend Jeff a cross. That's in our church, and I made Tanner a cross, and I made Caroline Rothschild a cross. She invited me to speak at the Fields of Faith there not too long ago, but I made a bunch of them. And anyway, it's a really good grounder for me, and it's pleasing for me, and it helps me just unplug from the world for a while and talk to God. I make a cross. So initially your question was encounter and why. Well, my backpack is full, brother, and we were attending the Church of God, and I think even that was part of God's grand plan. Was I think He needed to get me a little more involved in a church, and so we were going, but we weren't going with any consistency. But I really enjoyed listening to the message that Jared would give. And I think those messages start planting seeds, little mustard seeds, if you will.
Right.
And then the mustard seeds growed into a tree. And so some men in my life that were not afraid to hide their faith, that walked in their faith and you could see it. I decided I wanted some of that. And they were preaching, and they weren't even talking. And so I was watching them, and they asked me to go to men's encounter. And I said, God and I, we got an understanding. God can go help. God can go help those other folks that really need help. I can control it, right? Backpack's full, but I'll just work out more, right? And they asked me again the next year, and I'm like, I appreciate it, boys, but really, I not sure if this thing's a cult or what it is, but I'm good.
Kool-Aid for me.
Yeah. I mean, put everybody on the bus for kind of out loud. Yeah. So third year come around, they asked me again, and now it's more than just one or two. Now it's like 3 or 4 of them asking me, right? And then by the time year 4 or 5, I can't remember how many years it was, rolled around, my backpack was overflowing, and I needed help. So anyway, I said, sure, I'll go. And then as it got closer, I tried to make excuses, right? Well, we got a thing here. And I tried to back out. And I didn't. And truly, and no pun intended, I thank God I didn't. So I showed up at a little church south of the interstate down there at Gove, and nervous just like everybody else sitting in there. And the guys that invited me were telling me, hey, it's all right, man. That's going to be a good thing. Right. Yeah, whatever. Thank you. And then they, I don't want to give it all away, man, but they hand you a piece of paper there. And you read through this piece of paper, you start making check marks on your life on this piece of paper. Right. And I'm like, wow, it's a lot of check marks. And then before we go, we dispose of that paper. And then we go to men's encounter. And so as men's encounter plays out, and man, I tell you, for anybody listening to this podcast, man, don't be a Travis. And you go when somebody asks you to go. Do I wish I'd have gone sooner? Absolutely, man. I wasted 4 years, right? But I'll also say that it was in God's time. And the reason I say it was in God's time is because at Men's Encounter 2023, I was really consumed by walking with God. And what's cool about Men's Encounters, I tell everybody it's not the way to God, but it's a way, right? And the reason I say that is I think the way to God is starting to listen, starting to watch, starting to understand his path for you in your life, right? Right. And Jared's messages that he was given, right? All this, me and Tanner and you, right? 26 years ago, brother. All that led up to, okay, I'm going to Men's Encounter in March of 2023. And so I'm at March 2023. It's about a 2.5 day event. And on the third day at noon, we got another half a day left to go. I'm walking from the sanctuary, the church, over to the mess hall to go eat. And this kid comes up and got some facial hair, and he said, "Hey, Travis, you still living in Waukene?" And I said, yeah, man. How you doing? Don't recognize him. Kid's got some facial hair. Looks kind of familiar. I'm trying to process. I wasn't prepared for somebody to just come up and engage me that he knew me. All right. And I said, well, hey, take care, man. And I went on and I ate with a group of guys. And as I'm sitting there eating, I'm not really engaged in the conversation. I'm thinking about this kid that come up and said, "Son, man, who is that?" And I look out the window and he's sitting on a picnic bench outside the mess hall at Webster. And he's sitting out there and sitting up on top, and his feet are on the seat. And he's got his elbows on his knees. And so I walk up to this kid and I say, "Man, I'm sorry. I hit my head a lot in my life, and I'm having a little trouble remembering who you are." Right. And he said, "I'm 10.
Perfect timing, huh?
Yeah, you tell me there's no coincidence. No coincidences at all in this world, man. It's all on the scroll. And I was supposed to go.
And he was supposed to go.
Yeah. And I don't know what God's got this for Tanner, but I was able to reconnect with him in a pretty awesome way. And I know that God's got plans for him. And we all walk through fire, every one of us, man. And it's but walking through that fire is what gets you on the other side, and what gets you right. And fast forward up to this point in my life, I knew my season where I was at with the patrol. I knew where I was at with the patrol, and I really think God was done with me there.
Right.
And we got an awesome bunch of troopers out here, man.
Yeah.
We kind of succumbed to the sheepdog mentality of taking care of the flock. And I see you wearing the sheepdog troop now. But the sheepdogs, they take care of the flock, and they nip at their heels and stuff, and kind of keep the sheep in line. But really, our goal is for that day when the wolf shows up.
Right.
And that's what these men and women do out here. And so I listened, and I'm trying to think what my next chapter in life was going to be. And I thought I knew what it was going to be, and I was wrong. And so the next chapter possibility come up, and I really feel like I'm playing out in my life right now what God wants me to play out.
Right.
And part of the reason I think that is since that first encounter, what happened next? We go to another encounter, and this time you go out and you grab men, right? And this encounter is for everybody, absolutely everybody, right? There's law enforcement there. There's people that have been in prison there. There's people that gave up addiction 2 days before they came to men's encounter, right? And what's cool is there's also a woman's encounter. And, it's not my story to tell, but one of my daughters is also gone. And I'm very proud about her walk and where she's at right now. And what I see her doing right now in her life, and people seeing where she's at in life, and the peace that makes no sense in your life. When you're doing God's work, you got no worries. You really don't. You just set your sights on His path, and it's the right path because you look up and there's a light down there. Right? And so if you ever get lost, man, you just go find that path with the light, and you're back on your path again. And it's just that simple. And I really think that I'm where He wants me right now. And this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. My wife has, I always make a joke. I always tell everybody, I said, it's not easy being married to a cop's wife, but I'm telling you, I know that God put her in my life for a reason. And after I went to encounter, I realized that I need to glorify her more in my life and hold her up on the pedestal that God meant her to be on, because she's in my life because God put her in my life. And if we would have met way back in high school, we wouldn't be together. No way we'd be together. But because we went through our trials and tribulations and met when we did, it was where we were supposed to be. And I remember the very first moment that we're driving down Vine Street in Hayes. Of course, I'm a lot younger back then, 32 years younger. And I looked over at her, and the light from the street lights was hitting her face just right. And I looked over at her and I said, "Hey, Monique, I think I love you." And I'll never forget that moment. And I was right. I did love her. And it hasn't always been easy, but it's always been beautiful. And I think every time we've had trials and tribulations in our marriage and stuff, if we think back to that moment driving down Vine Street in Hayes, I think that's what it's all about. And we raised 2 beautiful daughters, and I've got 4 grandchildren now. And so God has blessed me beyond what I feel like I deserve. I'm just telling you. So I kind of got off track a little bit, but back to the men's encounter side. That men's encounter is coming up again in March of 2026, and the sign-up's out there. And man, I tell you, I'm already fishing, and I've already talked to men about going planting seeds, because you know how it is, man. I will never force God on anybody.
Right.
And truly, I think the best way to do God's work is to show people God in your life, and I want them to look at our lives and think, man, I want some of that, brother. And I said, well, I'm no expert, but I know a guy, and if you follow me, hopefully you'll be following him. So we're on this journey together now, and I think I've been 4 times, going on 5, and you've been 2 going on 3, or 3 going on 4. We're going on 4.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So anyway, I rambled on a lot there, and I know when I get up and 3 years ago, I wasn't the guy that would get up in front of a church congregation and talk about the path in life I've taken. I wasn't the guy that kids would have asked to speak at a Fields of Faith. But man, thank God that I'm that guy now. Because
You talk about all your blessings, and I'm going to just say, you being in everybody else's life is a blessing. I mean, I can't even count how many blessings I've had because of you or with you, as a matter of fact. I mean, we talk about encounter. We've gone twice together. Twice together. You took me once, so we've been 3 times.
three times.
But together we've served twice,
Mhm.
and we've fished together twice. Um, and we baptized. What would we do? 5? I think you and I baptized 5 in the lake ourselves this year, which
Yes.
was undescribable. That's the word, undescribable. So you talk about your blessings. I mean, I've just been hanging out with you 2 years this time, and I can't even count how many blessings that I've had sitting next to you, and that's a lot right there.
Yeah.
One of the questions I have for you is, you talked a little bit about David and Goliath. Is there another favorite Bible story or verse that you have that kind of sticks with you?
When I started getting like Bible curious, after I talked to Stan Falk, you were up in the stands, I think I somehow got a hold of one of those little Gideon Bibles or something, and so I'm like, I don't know how to read the Bible, man.
Right.
Back then I didn't know what the red letters meant.
I didn't either.
Yeah. I know now what they mean.
Right.
So I grabbed one of those little Bibles and I don't remember where I got it. And I started flipping through the pages and like, okay, God, what do you want me to read? And I opened it up. Oh man, I don't really understand that. So I decided, hey, I was born in 68. And so I started going chapter, back then it was chapter, but it's books of the Bible I understand now. But I was going through chapter, reading 6:8. Well, I got to Isaiah 6:8.
Right.
And I think I was supposed to read Isaiah 6:8. And God asked who's going to go for us. And Isaiah said, here I am, God, send me.
15.
Yeah, here I am. And man, the number of times in my life that, well, let me say it this way, man. There's a song out, Psalms 23 by Leanne Crawford, man, that talks about writing scripture on your heart.
What a song.
Yeah. And so, man, you grab those scriptures that you think God has intended to make a difference in your life, and you write that on your heart. And Isaiah 6:8 is the one, right? And I'm telling you, when you got a dust storm in western Kansas with 70 plus vehicles wrecked,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am, God was telling me, and you go into that dust storm, right? You got a person that evil is consumed, that decide they want to go down the wrong way down interstate, pushing 100-mile an hour, trying to hit people head on, and you cross the median and you go over there and you stop them. Here I am, God sent me. Right? You have a job opportunity in a community that needs some direction and some help. You say, here I am, God sent me. Right? So that scripture was like one of the very first ones that I kind of committed to memory. One that's pretty easy, but it was 68, Isaiah 6:8.
Right.
And since then, I've grown in my faith, and the group of men that I am with, you being one of them, we decided to read the Bible, the chronological Bible.
Right.
And January 1st of 2025, we started in Genesis, and now we're all the way up and through the death of Jesus.
Right.
And yes, it's just amazing. That thing's it's the Bible, but it's a history book.
Right.
Right? Those things happen. It's a Bible, but it's a leadership manual. Right?
Right.
It's a Bible, but it's a counselor. Right? And that Bible, that is a living Bible, and it's a mentor. Right? And the cool thing about that Bible is there hasn't been any new pages added physically, but that Bible is living out right now. Right? And someday there might be the book of Jeff in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's playing out in all of our lives right now. Right? Just as David, and I love this story of David, man, because I can kind of relate because I grew up a rancher and take care of the herd, right? The flock. And even one night, back in 1987, I was on spring break from college, and there was a blizzard coming in. And back then we didn't have the early notice like we do now, and we saddled up horses and rode 2.5 miles across country to drive 500 head of cattle into some timber so that they wouldn't die in the blizzard that's coming. And as we're driving them, it's getting dark and the wind's out of the north, and they don't want to go into the wind because they're cattle, right? They want to go away from the wind. It's sleety, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, that's the David in all of us, right? That's the things that prepared you, right? To be brave enough to go out into a blizzard and save. And we saved all 500 head of cattle. And there was other cattle that perished, hundreds of, not thousands of head that perished, but not one of those perished because we were good shepherds of the cattle. And I want to be a good shepherd of God's sheep. And so the sheepdog and the shepherd and all this, it's a way that I think God wanted me to play out my life.
Right.
So I'm in a good place right now because I'm in a God place. And one thing I want to tell everybody that Encounter gave us is it gave us a group of men in this community that care, that pray over people in this community, even when they don't know we're praying.
Right.
And there's a cross north of town that the Men's Encounter put up. It's 14 foot tall and 4 foot's planted in the ground. And there's a bucket of nails and a hammer there. And I get to drive by it every day. And there's 4 or 5 prayers up on there now. We don't read them, right?
Right.
That's between them and God, but we pray over them. And I'll even driven other nails into their prayers so that when they drive by and see that somebody else is up there praying for them. And sometimes there's just nails in it. Well, that nail's a prayer too.
Right.
I don't know what it means, but it meant something to somebody. So we pray over that. And so I've made a lot of crosses at this point, and let me say I haven't made one. God made them all.
Right.
And I hope they mean something to everybody that I make them for, and I just want them to know that cross is hope, because God gave us His Son to die for our sins so that we could have eternal life. And I think that's my spiel for the very first episode that I'm going to be on. And if you got anything else, Jeff, I'd be more than happy to answer. But this podcast, I've never done a podcast before.
Me neither.
And so I'm not sure what this means in my life with God, but I hope we're doing it proud. So.
Man, it's been awesome having you on here. And I think that, Brandon as well. I know that one of the things that's been exciting for me is we got your episode 4. So right now we've got to just talk with the host, right?
Yeah.
All you guys. So going forward, now we can all get together and we can be ourselves now.
Yeah.
This has been kind of a little out of our comfort zone for all of us because we've never been in a situation. Now we get to all team up together and do what we've been doing before. And that's, talking about God as a group, right? And growing.
I do really believe that, for people to want to follow, humans in particular, that you need to make yourself a little bit vulnerable out there. Right. And you need to put yourself out. And really by doing so, all you're doing is professing. I mean, everybody's got a testimony, man, and so everything I've said here, in this podcast with you, Jeff and Brandon, this is my testimony.
Right.
And there's way more to it.
Right.
You can't
get to it.
And you can't pack everything that happened in the world in those 2025 years, since Jesus, right, into a condensed version, And so I really look forward to a future podcast where we just make it real.
Yeah.
And we pick a topic and then we pick it apart using our life experiences. And the end goal is somebody out there feels exactly the same way we do. And I think that somebody out there is going to grab onto that, and maybe that's what it takes to jump that little hurdle of faith and follow him and walk with him.
Well, with that, I don't think that we can find a better way to end the episode than letting him do it right there. So I'm just going to thank you for being here and thank everybody for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. Thank you.